I used to be a very shy kid, and I consider myself introverted. So for me, speaking up in a room is very, very difficult to this date. Although I am confident and I know my self worth, it's still very difficult for me to express myself in large setting, especially if there are a lot of extroverts in the room. And that's why I'm very excited for this episode today with Jane Williams. So, hi everyone, and welcome back to From a Woman to a Leader, a podcast dedicated to discussing women's unique challenges in the tech industry. And I don't know if you are aware of that, but a lot of very confident leaders struggle to speak up in a room, me included. And what if I told you that finding your voice is not about being the loudest person, but about owning who you are and what you bring to the table? And today I'm talking with Jane Williams, and Jane is a former IBM executive and she's a leadership coach. You know, fun fact about Jane, she finished her master degree without saying a single word in class. And she shared her incredible journey of overcoming shyness, finding her passion, and building the confidence to thrive in male-dominant environments. And we also dive into some practical strategies for making an entrance, owning your presence in remote meetings, and the importance of aligning your voice with what truly fires you up. So if you feel unsure about how to express yourself or how to claim your space, I think this episode will help you and inspire you to take the first step. So let's dive right in. Hey, Jane, how are you? Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me here. I'm so excited.
It's such a pleasure having you today here, and we're going to talk about a topic I think is really, really relevant, especially for women in tech, about finding your voice in a challenging environment. Before we do that, why don't you tell our audience briefly about your background?
Okay. I am a former IBM executive. I was with IBM in a variety of roles from consultant to marketing over 20 years. After that, I came back home. I got sick of traveling. So I came back home to my alma mater, the University of Missouri St. Louis, where I served as a CIO in a very challenging environment for about 3 years. And then when I retired, I had put several of my folks through a coaching program and got great results with it. And the coaching firm came back to me and asked if I would work for them. So I've been coaching for them for a while, really kind of focusing on women executives who are trying to make that next step. You know, they're transitioning from doing their jobs to leading others to do the jobs, which can be a challenge. So that's where I've been kind of focusing my attention right now and kind of coaching those women to have a voice in tech environment, which is sometimes challenging.
Yeah, and this is incredible and very much needed. So thank you so much, Jane, for doing that. And in our pre-call, you mentioned that you started out being shy and eventually realized that you need to find your own voice in your career. So can you share a little bit about that? Like if there was a specific moment that kind of, or event that made you realize that you need to have your own voice?
You know, it's funny. I was very shy all through. I think I did my entire master's degree without saying a word in class. It was just a terrifying thing for me to speak up. And I kind of started working on that when we had an assignment where we had to give a presentation on video. Now, back then, I mean, I'm dating myself, but nobody did video back then. And I was the only girl in the class, and guys were all scared to death, just like me. And some of them just couldn't do it. And, you know, went into the bathroom and they were throwing up and just couldn't handle it. And I said, you know what? Let's just do this. How bad can it be? Right. So I kind of stood up and I gave my presentation and it wasn't bad. And then I realized it kind of just clicked, you know, it's like, just do it and make that first step and see what happens. And after that, it kind of helped. It's been a long journey, but it really helped me get out there and say what I want to say. I know I have confidence that I know I have something to say it with confidence. And if others don't like it, they don't like it. So it's really, really important, I think, in business, where others have so many expectations of you and what they want you to do and what they think you should do and how you should act. But you need to find your own inner voice and what speaks to you and what fires you up and gets you excited, and then work to that, rather than molding yourself to what other people want you to be.
Yes, and you mentioned two very, very important things that I want to emphasize here. So, first of all, be you. And I always tell the women I coach that they shouldn't try to be something they're not, and they should love themselves the way they are. I just had a client call yesterday, and the woman was so frustrated that she's not easygoing, kind of in the conversations like other people. She's really good at what she does, but for her, like talking, presenting to the board is not easy, and she kind of beat herself up. So I guess my main message here would be just love yourself the way you are.
I so agree with that. It's just so important. I mean, we've all seen people try to be people they're not, right? I've had managers go to training sessions and they come back and think they're supposed to be somebody else. And you can tell. And, I don't know why it's harder for women. And in IT, it's really kind of hard. I think the IT field doesn't lend itself to really getting out there and talking and emoting. You're more sitting there coding and doing things like that. But everybody has, like you said, and when you're a coach, you know that everybody comes into a coaching session has everything they need already to be successful. It's just they don't know that. So giving, you the confidence to be yourself and let yourself shine. So
For sure. And the second thing you mentioned is about passion. And you talked also about that in our pre call about passion, finding something you're passionate about, how one can discover their passion and, you know, figure out what it is that they want.
That's hard. It's hard. And I think there's a lot, that's a big buzzword, passion, find your passion. And in IT, sometimes it's difficult. It's find something that you're really, really excited about and that gets you up in the morning. To me, and this sounds dumb, but I was really into process automation. How to make it just drove me crazy to see people wasting time and effort doing things in a way that technology can help you live your life better. And a lot of people fight technology. And so to me, it was an inner drive I had to do that. And so that made it easy to take on projects where I did that. And that also helped me stand out from the crowd because that was an area that I was really, really interested in. And if you're focused on something and you love it, it becomes easy. So sometimes it's just self reflection. It's like, take a step back and think about, why am I in this field? What is it that I think is important? And what can I do that I see others not doing? And if you can find something that really motivates you, learn everything you can about it, and then work on how you project that and tell that story to others to make them understand it.
Definitely. And I think that many people and many women are very bound to what the role description is or what their manager expects them to do. And kind of what you're saying, I think makes sense to really focus on whatever your role is. Like, okay, in what areas do I feel like I'm really passionate about and I bring value, and focus on those rather than try to be something that someone expects you to be. And when you're focusing, as you said, like on automation, in your case, well, when you're doing something you're very passionate about, it's very important to you, it will also be very easy for you to talk about that.
Yeah, and that is the number one thing I learned when trying to do presentations. I remember one day I was at a conference and my manager was giving a presentation about something that I didn't know anything about. And he got sick at the last minute. And he said, "Okay, here, you're doing this presentation." And I was like, "Oh no."
Oh my God.
And I basically just read what was on the slides. And I remember at the end of the presentation, all the audience said, "Wait, we could have just read those slides, And I said, "I know that. But my presentation, and I felt really horrible, but my presentation, which was next, I knew everything about, and it was excellent. I got great ratings and everybody loved it." And that's just really shows the difference between something you know something about, that you care about, and that you can bring all of yourself to it. And you forget yourself in the moment then when you're excited about something.
Yeah, and I managed a lot of introverted people, engineers, and I always kind of encourage them to talk about areas that they are passionate about. And it was, even the most introverted engineer, when you bring several engineers together and they talk about something they're passionate about, all of a sudden you see those people excited and talking.
That's funny. Introverts being one. And when you're in the engineering fields and the technology fields, you're more focused on intellectual pursuits, right? You're not really like a marketing person's out there. They know what to do and they know how to be, emote and all those things. But engineers are some of the most passionate people I've known. My father was a civil engineer, and to his dying day, he loved talking about his job, even long after he was retired. So that's what makes the difference. It really does. And I think one of the things that women lose, women and men, everybody loses when you move from being a doer, someone who's just writing the code or designing the building or doing the work, to a leader. Sometimes it's hard for people to realize that that's a completely different job. And that's something that you really have to focus on understanding, that you're now helping other people be successful where you were. And it's different. You have to help them find their passion, and you have to help. It's your job now to take that vision and be aligned with the strategy of the company or the organization you're with, and help project that to the people who affect their lives. So it's a difficult transition for a lot of people, but it can be so rewarding if you do it.
Yes, it is. It's not just for women. I mean, it's hard to kind of let go of things that you're used to doing and you're used to doing that very well and let other people do it. It's always hard. I want to ask you something that you mentioned in our pre-call. You talked about making an entrance. Sorry. So why do you believe it's important to make an entrance in professional meetings and making sure that kind of people notice that you're there?
It's interesting. I would walk into a room and be scared, and you're looking around at everybody as, what are they doing? Are they looking at me? What is going on? And when people see you walk in that way, that's how they think of you. The minute you walk in that door, read the room, understand that it's not about you, that it's about you understanding them and where they're at that moment and how they're seeing you. It's so important. The biggest thing when people talk about personal branding, I've had a lot of conversations about that. And a lot of it is your brand precedes you. It's what people who think about you, if they see you're on the agenda, they think, "Oh, she's got something great to say," or "This will be boring." And then the really, really important thing is, then when they see you walk in the room, the expectation they have. And if you do that with confidence, they're going to have a lot more interest and focus in what you're doing. And then the really most important thing is what they think of you after you've left the room. So if you can make that great entrance with confidence, and it doesn't have to be flashy or anything, just walk in, sit down with confidence, and join the meeting as an equal. But I've seen so many people just slink into a meeting and try to be in the background and not have anybody notice them. And it's just, that's what people think of you then.
Yeah, I think it's very important. I think it starts with the inner self, like how do we see ourselves? And you said, treat yourself as equal. You have to first feel equal. And when you enter a meeting or a space, like just be there, like be present. Like the way you walk, the way you sit, it's so important. Your posture is so critical, right? I mean, hey, everyone, like smiling, coming very relaxed, and like, hi, everyone, instead of like, oh, just to make sure that no one will notice me. I mean, that makes a huge difference.
It's like turning that vision around. It's like my husband always says, turn the binoculars around, but it's, if you slink into the room, you're thinking, what are these people thinking of me? And it's not. You do it the other way around, and get them thinking, what does she think of me? You know? So if you can kind of turn that around and have them thinking about that rather than about, you're thinking about yourself, you're going to go a long way.
Yeah. And how do you do that in virtual meetings? I mean, nowadays, I don't know how many meetings happen like in person. I'm sure there are, but so many women I work with, they work virtually. So how do you make an entrance or make yourself visible when you get into a virtual meeting?
Now that's a great point. So you're sitting there with a microphone, you've got headphones on, and that's, for the podcast, but you know that that's how you want to present. And you have to, so many people don't think about their background. We are not, and it's simple things like how many people sit there with a laptop and you can only see, from their eyes up, or they sit with a window behind them, or just simple things about how you look and how you react on that call because people are looking at you and that's what they see. And all they've got is this little box around your face. And just make sure that that box reflects what you want it to reflect. Put some books in the background if that's important. Make sure your lighting is decent. Have a microphone if you need it. But I think it's one of the big transitions from remote work is when I started remote working, we did it all on the phone, so it didn't matter. But I took classes in how to project, and they taught us how to project on the phone. I have seen very few classes and courses in how to project correctly in a Zoom meeting or, on air. And you can make or break, I'm working with a client right now that just in 3 sessions, she looks so much more confident and better in her Zoom. And it makes a huge difference. Her manager even reached out to me and said, "What have you done? Because she looks so much better in the meetings." Yeah.
Wow. Are
Little,
you willing to
little
share?
thing.
Like, what have you done? Like, at least like some insights that can be valuable to other women listening?
Make sure you've got a decent camera. Make sure that you can be heard. Make sure, and this is really kind of important, turn off the self view so you're not sitting there staring at yourself all the time. I've seen, and you can see women all, going like this, and women do it a lot, fixing their hair and, because they're staring at themselves on that screen. Don't do that. Know what you look like, do a little preview, but then turn that off and make sure that you're dressed appropriately, that your background is okay, and that your lighting is okay, and that you can be heard. And those are really, really simple things. You don't have to, be like a professional and have all sorts of equipment, but you just have to pay a modicum of attention to that.
And the equipment is, I mean, obviously I invested a lot of money actually recently in my equipment because obviously I'm a podcaster, but really, I mean, some front lighting, a decent camera and a speaker, like a decent speaker, that's not a lot of money. Like in $100, you can probably buy the 3 of them and just have something that sounds okay. And I need a front light because I work a lot in the evenings, like now, so the lighting is not very good. It's not that expensive.
It's not. I don't have it on now, but I have I think it was a $30 front light, and a microphone was less than $100. And just anything in the background. I mean, pay attention to what that looks like. So, it doesn't take much. I mean, I've got some generic things back there, but if you want somebody to recognize my husband when he does podcast, he works on in conservation issues. So he has a bookshelf that has conservation books on it. People know that he's interested in that and that's his theme. So that took nothing. That was just gathering up the books that he already had.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I think that I mean, I know that some people have limited space in their, home, and the background may not always be best. So I would say if you don't have a great background, just put a virtual one. I know a lot of people put like the company official background or something. I mean, that's okay too.
And those have gotten so much better. I know that, when you first did it on Zoom, you could see, as you move, you could tell it was a virtual background. But I do a lot of client calls in Microsoft Teams, and their virtual backgrounds are phenomenal. I mean, you can't really tell. So, and at the very least, you can blur your background or something if you've got a lot going on. But all you need
Exactly.
to do is find a wall.
Find a wall. I love that. And put something on that wall.
Yeah, and put something on the wall, and there you go.
Exactly. And let's talk about meetings. And I know it's very difficult, at least it was for me and for many women, to chime in into meetings, especially when the environment is very muscular and everyone are talking on top of each other. For me, it's still very difficult. And you mentioned like how important it is to have a moderator in meetings. So can you share a little bit about that?
Meetings are a whole thing. I mean, it's not a shouting match. It's a place that everybody theoretically comes in with a shared purpose. Everybody knows their role. Everybody knows why they're there. And how many meetings have you been in where I teach online and the MBA students have to do presentations, and very few of them actually even think to put an agenda up as the first slide, if you're doing a presentation. So it's extremely important for the leader to understand and make everybody understand that this meeting is for a purpose. These are the things we need to get through today. And this is how much time we're going to allot. And then we're going to have time for questions. So to have a remote, and especially in a remote environment where people have all sorts of distractions and things going on, no emails during that meeting. No. How demoralizing is it when you're in a meeting and you get an email from your boss during that meeting? It's like, he's not paying attention. Whether it's virtual or in person, having that set and having the moderator understand that everybody needs to be heard and that not everybody feels comfortable, like you said, with this talking over each other, and not everybody feels comfortable in that environment. And when you're leading a meeting like that, stop and say, okay, we haven't heard from Ella over here, or we haven't heard from John. What might you have to say? And another thing that I found really, really helpful is to say, listen, here's a whiteboard up here. And if you got something to say that you didn't have a chance to say during this meeting, go write it up here and post it on the board. And I've had a lot of success getting introverted people to be able to do that way. And they can express themselves after the meeting when everybody's not screaming over each other. But if you're trying to interject yourself in that kind of, it's sometimes it's just wait till they all die down, wait till the clamoring dies down. And sometimes you're not going to find a gap, but raise your hand even. If it's something that shows I have something, I need to talk now, and do it calmly. Don't join in with the chaos and don't create more chaos. Wait for the chaos to die down and find a way to interject or make yourself heard.
Sure, I think the raise hand feature is really useful to chime in, but you need to make sure that someone noticed that, right? I mean, a good moderator will notice people raising hands and will give those people the speaking slot. And also comments. A lot of times the chat, I mean, it can be a little bit overwhelming at times, but sometimes it can be very useful because some people, I notice, they don't feel comfortable speaking up, but they will feel comfortable putting their thoughts in the chat. And then as a moderator, you can just read out what they said, or maybe ask, hey, can you share a little bit more what you meant? And then people will feel more comfortable talking.
Yeah, that's an excellent idea. I forgot about that. But yeah, chat can be used really, really effectively. So as long as everybody can see it. I remember we had a lot of meetings where they were doing independent IMs on the side, and that can be very distracting. But if you keep everybody focused on the chat in the room, and then having that moderator just really, really helps.
For sure. And any other tips that you have, not specifically for moderator, but for women in a very male dominant industry, kind of how to express themselves, how to express their ideas when they face maybe some gender biases?
It's so funny. I have this conversation with my husband, and he's like, there's no gender bias. What's your problem? He thinks I'm crazy, right? But there is. And don't fall into the trap of trying to be like everybody else, I think is the thing to say. If you have something of value to say, find a way to say it that makes them listen, but is you. At IBM, we had a set of values, or different kinds of people of different kinds of values. And one of them was the wild duck. And, they always said, listen to your wild ducks. And I I identified with that. And so to me, I embraced that and I spent a lot of time coming across with that persona. When they all started talking about golf, I would say, okay, we're not talking about that anymore. Let's move on to this. Or, just have, if you come in, and one thing my husband did say is like, if you come in with a presupposition that you're a second status participant, you're going to come across that way. Always know that what you have is just as valuable. They're just expressing it in a different way. Um, and humor is always works. Humor works great. And don't get yourself all worked up. It's just the way things are. And the most important thing, I just can't stress this too much. I had a manager that taught me this. The best success you can possibly have is you have a great idea and you come into a meeting and everybody else leaves thinking it was their idea. And don't have that ego that you have to be the one that gets heard. And I can kind of leave it at that. Just you're coming in with an agenda. You want these people to think a certain way. Do what you can to understand them and how you're going to get them to move that.
I think this is a wonderful strategy when you're trying to influence people and you don't care much, about whose idea it was, right? It may be your idea, but the important thing you're trying to get across is like that people will actually buy in. But in some occasions, we really need to show up our leadership, right? I mean, and it's important to not hide or, make sure to emphasize what we have done. And this is our thoughts.
That is a great point. It's like, if everybody leaves and they take the credit for something that you had, that's not good.
Yeah.
But make sure that, everybody does know it came from you. And that can be with side conversations and talking to people one-on-one. I have found that it was much easier to get over a male dominated attitude by talking to guys one-on-one. Listen, let's go out for a coffee or, let's have lunch together. And here's the deal. I mean, if you feel like you're in a situation where everybody's ganging up on you in a crowd where you don't fit in, split that crowd up, and approach them one-on-one. If you write really, really well, think about, doing it in writing. If you talk much better, then take them out and talk to them. But I think the important thing is don't feel like you're being ganged up on. It's hard, but they're not ganging up on you on purpose, right? They're just feeling like they can dismiss you. And if it's a challenging thing that you're trying to say, they can easily dismiss you. So just take a breath, be persistent, and know that there's other ways. The best way through a brick wall sometimes is around it, not through it.
I love that. That's for sure. And I think that the offline conversation really helps and building relationships really help with different people, right? I mean, when you build relationships with them, one of my managers told me, I mean, when I worked fully remote and I was traveling, he said, when you travel, the only thing you should focus on is building relationships, not getting any work done.
Is intelligent. What a great
Yes,
person.
I think so. I think so too.
Because when you're working in a hybrid environment, that face to face is the only time you've got to do that. Yeah. And you're right. Why waste time trying to get a point across that you could do in another way rather than just building and getting that trust? Trust
Exactly.
is so fundamental. If somebody trusts you that you have something to say, they'll pay attention.
Exactly. And a lot of times we have this bias or this opinion on someone we haven't met. And then when we meet them, when we have like a casual conversation, all of a sudden we see, oh, this person is actually really nice. I like them.
It was so funny at IBM. We all worked remotely, and we would only see each other in the lobby of the client when we were walking in. We'd have a presentation, and it was like, oh, hey, who are you? You gave this thought in this presentation. Now I can understand it a little better because I met you. So it was very interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And before we leave for today, Jane, what else do you want to share that maybe I haven't asked, if there's anything?
I think in this day and age, it's just so strange that when I think back, my mom was in the group that was trying to give women the right to vote in the US. And that was my mother. That was she was not able to vote. And to think about that and to know that we really have come a long way as women. It may seem sometimes like it's hard, and it is. Believing in yourself and having that internal belief that you can do anything and love yourself, like you said. I mean, that's the best thing. Just take some time, get to know yourself and know what's great about yourself, and then just strengthen that any way you possibly can. And that's the way to be successful.
I love that. And how can our listeners find you, Jane?
Excuse me. The best way is on my website, findyourfirecoach.com, and also on LinkedIn, Jane Parker Williams. And those are the two best ways to find me.
Perfect. I will put them both on the show note. And I want to thank you so much, Jane, for being here with me today and for all the wisdom you shared.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for listening to the episode with Jane Williams. I hope it was beneficial for you. And before you go, I just want to give you a sneak peek for next week. I have a guest that I already interviewed in the past, and she's back. Her name is Jenny Toe. And we are going to talk about how introverted women can lead staying who they are. And this is near and dear to my heart because I am introverted and I was in leadership roles, so definitely relevant for me as well. And Jenny is a very inspiring coach. She is certified positive psychology coach, and she helps introverts lead with quiet confidence. Yes, there is such a thing, quiet confidence. And we talk about unique challenges that women that are introverted face in making their voice heard without changing who they are, because we don't want to change you. And I can share, I don't want to change myself, and I don't want to try to be like someone I'm not. And Jenny will share powerful strategies to building confidence, how you can speak up authentically and thrive in male dominant spaces. So mark your calendar for next week's episode, and I hope to see you next time on From a Woman to a Leader. If you like this episode, please subscribe to never miss another episode. I would appreciate if you can share the episode with anyone you feel like it's going to be valuable for. Thank you so much. See you next week, and have a wonderful day.